Hello and welcome everyone to today's Mastercast titled Improve Your Employee and Customer Experience Through Crowdsourcing. My name is Jason Pointland. I'm a Director of Professional Services here at Medallia. Before we get started, just wanted to start off with a few quick housekeeping notes. Just so everyone knows, all attendees are on mute. If you have a question, please submit it via the Q&A window that's on your screen, and we'll try to address them at the end of the presentation. Just of note, this Mastercast is being recorded, and you will receive the recording within 24 to 48 hours in English after this presentation concludes. Finally, we also have live translations of this webinar available in German, French, Spanish, and Italian, courtesy of Interprefy. To use the translation feature, use the live translation module below the Q&A window and select the language of your choice. Detailed instructions are available as a PDF if you need it. So let's get started. So joining me today is Jeff Whitney, who's a Senior Program Manager for T-Mobile. Welcome, Jeff. Glad to have you.
Thanks, Jason.
Yeah, so Jeff is an awesome partner of Medallia's. He's someone who has spent the last 11 years at T-Mobile in the retail world. And prior to joining that, he spent another 10 years in other retail settings. So he truly has a passion and an experience level of the retail space, fully understands what's going on, and is a great partner. He also has a passion for training and helping people to grow. So welcome, Jeff. We're glad to have you here again today.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jason. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome.
As you can see, that picture was back when I didn't have hair. So,
hey, we all change. Life gets the better of the best of us, right? So first, to get us started, I want to just give you a quick introduction of Crowdicity. It's a product that Medallia offers to all of our customers. Crowdicity does help gather insights and ideas to help your company improve. You can use it for employee engagement, innovation, crowdsourcing, and even create some healthy competition amongst the frontline folks. People can vote for ideas and earn points on the leaderboards, which is definitely something that's exciting. So now I'm going to stop talking for a little while. I'm going to hand it over to Jeff. Jeff, can you tell us a little bit about why T-Mobile needed Crowdicity?
Excellent. Thanks, Jason. Yes. First of all, thanks for having me. This is really exciting for me to be here and talking about a product that I'm super passionate about. Just overlooking everything, as a larger consumer markets team here at T-Mobile, we were in need of something that could produce proactive frontline feedback. Something that we could use to collect crowdsourced customer pain points, ideas for improving the customer experience, and any other feedback that we can get from our T-Mobile branded locations and Metro by T-Mobile locations, so that we can get all these ideas collected and acted on quickly. At the time, we were using another platform to track feedback, which allowed users the ability to vote and comment on ideas, which is great, but it literally was just a list of all ideas. It wasn't easy to organize content. It wasn't as branded as we wanted it to be, and it wasn't very user-friendly, both from the design side and from the user side. So here's what drove our decisions to go for a platform like Crowdicity. Number one, we needed a way to solicit targeted feedback on topics ranging from new device launches, new company initiatives, pandemic-related feedback, or really anything that was important to our team's success. Number two, crowdsourcing. We needed something that allowed our frontline to comment on and vote for ideas that were being shared by their peers. This essentially helps our headquarters teams prioritize what is most important to the field. Number three, we knew from the beginning we wanted to incorporate frontline engagement. We'd have a select group of retail store managers in the field working in a stretch assignment to support their peers by being site experts and driving field engagement within their markets. Number four, we needed a better way to bridge communication between headquarters and the front line, so our teams know there's a human working at headquarters behind everything they experience in stores, and to help facilitate a two-way open and honest dialogue. And finally, number five, my favorite, a place for our frontline to be heard. We received numerous surveys and responses that their frontline needed a place to share their feedback. Additionally, we saw feedback being shared externally outside of T-Mobile. So to bring business-sensitive feedback in-house, we needed a place that was engaging, refreshed often, and literally out of the public eye. And all of this, of course, centers around the main goal of solving pain points for both our customers and our employees alike.
Wow, that's great stuff, Jeff. Appreciate you sharing that at a high level. It's super helpful for people to think about how impactful this can be on multiple levels. I'm curious, though, can you tell us a little bit about how you actually built this and got people on board to help support this?
Yes, I can definitely do that. Let me switch over to my next slide. Hey, how to build a frontline community. Absolutely. So, I'm not going to go over every single one of these steps, but I will touch on some of the key aspects that went into building a site using the Crowdicity platform. So essentially, we got the keys to Crowdicity back in June of 2020. And, I think if you look at this timeline, it would range in how much time it would take a company to build a platform like this out to make it launch ready. For us, it took about 4 months because we were just so dedicated to making it perfect and making it the right experience for all of the people that were using it. And so I'll start at the bottom and just kind of touch a couple things going up. But site name it seems kind of silly to think that site name is so important, but it is, because this will impact the rest of how your product and your program launches in the future. So my recommendation is to have a site name early on and have your leadership approve this early. So as you brand your site and your communication strategy, you'll have a consistent program name that you can begin promoting throughout and design elements around that name. Leadership approvals. In addition to site name approval, you'll need approvals from your leaders to begin looping in support teams and working towards a launch date. Additionally, loop in human resources teams for guidance on moderating the feedback that you're going to be receiving, and for audience, and for just creating a better audience experience. And also letting your human resources team know that this is a tool that they could tap into potentially in the future if they were interested. Moderator recruitment. So kind of along those lines, what we did is we set up weekly touch bases with our key subject matter experts. And what worked for me during this process was kind of selling the idea that Crowdicity was not just a feedback platform, but it's also a resource for those teams that really want to collect frontline feedback. And so those teams that participated early on turned out to be great advocates for future challenges as we moved along. Kind of moving up, early adopters. Start bringing in a select group of individuals. We gave our frontline early users a fun name. We call them market ideators. And we gave them badges to help them stand out within our site to kind of show off their awesomeness. And their job is to help promote engagement and to be the site experts. Finally, jumping up all the way to the top, site launch. We launched big. Don't just let this go out in an email. Go big with a launch. What we did was a series of videos that showcased what our frontline can do in the site and how to use it. The videos we actually played in all of our store back rooms for the first months. It was a series of 4 videos that kind of highlighted different aspects of Crowdicity and the tool. And so that's kind of how we got to site launch in October of 2020.
That's great, Jeff. I appreciate you sharing that. I think that's helpful for a lot of people as they're thinking about how to actually make this real. So thank you for sharing that. I'm curious now if we can kind of shift gears and talk a little bit about what you're actually seeing. How many people are using this thing? How much engagement are you actually getting out of this?
Love it. Let me switch over to my next slide. So check this out. First of all, our site, we actually branded it as T-Action. At T-Mobile here, we have a lot of things that start with T-dash. So why not have a T-Action awesome site? Just kind of an overall look. This is not sensitive material. This is just something that anyone could see. But I think what I love about these charts that show our engagement in our T-Action site is just some of the kind of key elements here. And just looking at the graph, you can kind of see that top line is users who joined. Obviously, that will fluctuate over time, and it won't continuously be going up because users will only join once. But what's great about this is that you can kind of see some of the really great behaviors that are coming out of these engagement metrics. So you can see ideas and comments on the left are continuously growing month over month. And I could show you January numbers, and it just goes off the chart. And that's amazing. That's where the feedback starts really being exponential and amazing. Then you look at the right and you see additional aspects like post views and page views, but the magic here is really all about those votes. And that's where the crowdsourcing really starts coming into play, where the more votes you get, the more prioritized the feedback becomes in the eyes of the front line. And so our headquarters can really look at that and see what is the most important. But overall, since launch, we've had over 3,500 users, which is pretty amazing. I'm considering, just past engagement tools, which I'll talk about in a second. But 90% of that audience is frontline employees and 10% is headquarters. And also since launch, we've received over 1,300 ideas, feedback items, or pain points. Thinking about all of the pain points that we've received, while not all of them will necessarily translate into an immediate dollar amount when we resolve those pain points or implement those ideas, in the end, we're essentially reducing the amount of clicks for our store processes for both our employees and our customers. And that translates to saved time, saved labor, and that allows us to focus our efforts more on supporting more customers in locations. And in addition, we've created a safe space for feedback to be shared and a culture of feedback that leadership supports and can get behind.
That's awesome, Jeff. And it's amazing. In just a short time, you've already pumped through 1,300 ideas. It's just really cool to see, and it's amazing to see the amount of engagement that you're driving and all those ideas. I'm sure that keeps you up at night and keeps you busy, but it's a good problem to have. Curious, can you talk a little bit more about some of the other successes and things that you're seeing with the site since you launched?
Absolutely. And that 1,300 ideas is just like one of the first successes. One thing I'll mention is that in our previous site, we had that site launched for 2 years almost, and we only received just a little over 200 ideas in that 2 years time frame. So in less than 3 months, having 1,300 ideas is phenomenal. Like, it's just fantastic. Some of the other program successes that I'd love to share with you all there's 5 big wins I think that we can talk about. First, let's look at our site. You can see T-Action here for the first time, all the branding that goes into it, the design elements. You can see our magenta and just kind of the way that we like to view our stuff at T-Mobile. But some of the key elements that we talk about when we talk about our program successes, T-Action, which is our site, continues to solve for communication and knowledge gaps. And so an example of this is early on when we first launched, one of the first pain points was about a system enhancement, which actually we found out was launched earlier in the year. And for some reason, the communication was somehow missed by a portion of our front line. And so our Crowdicity site essentially acted as a way to capture these communications and a way for our frontline to see that these were actually resolved. And they can interact with our headquarters folks saying that they're very excited that some of these things have been resolved, and they just didn't know, and it changed their world. Some of the quotes that we got out of those conversations are just phenomenal. System improvements, also kind of along the lines of that first item. Obviously, we're a tech company, so systems happens to be our number one kind of source of feedback that we get. But it's all good stuff. It's all stuff that can make the experience even better for everyone involved. The key here, though, to getting those system improvements is to have that team at headquarters or wherever you're at dedicated to receiving that feedback and making sure that they're capturing it, backlogging it if they need to, or prioritizing it based off of the votes that the frontline is sharing. And that's where we're seeing a lot of success. Number 3, bridging the gap, allowing for the frontline to be heard. And I think we've done a really good job at this at T-Mobile. And I think I can't think of another tool that exists that has an interaction that's like this, that's open and honest and engaging, where people can leave a comment and someone from headquarters can pop in and say, I agree with you. We don't have that dialogue anywhere else. We've got surveys, we've got, roundtables where sometimes that dialogue happens in a small space, but this is the only place that it has such a large audience that people can react with. In addition, we've also opened up Crowdicity to other parts of our business. So our care side of the business is testing this out. Our T-Mobile for Business, which is our B2B teams, are also using this in different ways. So really cool to see the engagement happening, not just in consumer markets, but other parts of our business. Frontline engagement, while our frontline workers are considered essential in our stores, supporting customer needs throughout this whole pandemic, what I feel like, I still think that this online community has allowed our teams to have a stronger connection with each other and with our headquarters teams. So even though they're still in stores, like everyone feels more connected because of the site. And it's been a huge win to have this program on a team already focused on employee feedback. So when I say program in the right place, I'm saying whoever owns this program at your company, make sure that it's on a team that also deals with other types of feedback, because having a feedback ecosystem is imperative to the success of a program like this. Some of the future plans, just real quick, that I'll share that are coming up that I think will also add to our successes. We're going to continue to drive strategic business initiatives as our company continues to grow. We're going to have more frontline engagement with contests and surveys within the site. We're going to utilize that leaderboard point system to award consistent users. So we potentially could award them with a trip to headquarters or an in-person meeting with executive leadership. So I think there's a lot of different things that we can do with this site. And one thing I want to add just real quick, did I mention we already have 80 wins out of the site. So that means pain points resolved, ideas implemented, just workarounds identified, solutions provided, things that we just wouldn't have had resolved without this site. And I think in just 3 months, that's pretty epic. Some of those things include, and I won't go into all the details, but again, those missed communication opportunities from knowledge gaps, store bug fixes and enhancements to help reduce employee and indirectly customer effort, implemented documentation that employees needed to support the sales process, pandemic-related updates to in-store signage and procedures, and also merger-related pain points due to combined systems. We merged with Sprint early or in the middle of 2020 and in the middle of a pandemic. So what a great place to have feedback collected in one spot for our frontline.
Wow, Jeff, I mean, amazing stuff. Again, to think about 1,300 ideas coming in, and not just coming in, but then that you've been able to take action on over 80 of those. And I know you're just getting started, but the idea that, people are seeing that you guys are actually listening and actually taking action and then solving some of their issues. Huge, huge, huge wins. I loved your term epic, and I'm going to use it because I think you're spot on there. Great stuff. Thank you for sharing that. So curious, I know there's probably some people on the phone who are also wondering, like, okay, so what else is on your mind? What other advice would you give if I was going to start? How do you kind of kickstart this thing? Because I think you've probably raised the energy level here. I think you got a few people excited. So what kind of advice would you give for someone who's wanting to get started?
Great question. And I'm a program manager, so I have some program manager advice I'll share with y'all. 4 things I think are kind of key when I think about everything I just shared. So if you're going to launch something like this, I think 1, plan ahead. So this would include having a dedicated headcount for the program, looping in people early to have them engaged from the beginning and have them become advocates for the program you're building. And then obviously to do that, start with those individuals who want the feedback. Sell the idea of a site like Crowdicity as a resource for their team, like I mentioned. And I think just kind of touching on this from my past experiences working in feedback programs, there's always someone at headquarters or someone in other teams that say, how do I get frontline feedback about this one thing? This is the resource for them. That's how you pick those people that can be involved because they already want the feedback. So it's an awesome resource. Number 2, program in the right place. Mentioned it earlier. Make sure that this is on a team dedicated to getting employee feedback to the right audiences. That's super important. Number 3, over communicate. I love this one. The more you communicate via your team meetings, your emails, your blogs, because there's blog capability in the site, monthly calls with both moderators and market ideators, whoever your people are that support the program, the enterprise meet and greets, because you're going to meet so many new people when you do something like this. I've just recently started a newsletter that is phenomenal, and it goes on a weekly basis. But the more communications you send, the more effective your program will be. And then finally, executive awareness and support. I can't stress this enough. You have to have your highest leader involved. This proves the importance of your work. It promotes a healthy and safe environment where feedback is welcome, and it ensures that all parties take it seriously.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. I appreciate you sharing that because it's definitely helpful to think about planning and communicating. And as a bonus, you've allowed me to be a fly on the wall within your system. I appreciate that because I do actually get to see a lot of these things going on, and I love reading your weekly newsletter. I think that's key point. You kind of glossed over it, but I do want to touch on it really quickly. You send out this weekly email talking about here's the number of ideas, here's the top ideas, here's our top people that are communicating, but it lets people know and assures them that someone is reading this and action is being taken. And they can see that things that were prioritized by them and voted on by them are actually being actioned. And I think that is key to keep the cycle going. And I think of it more like an avalanche that continues to just grow as it goes down the hill. And so your work in this area has been amazing, and you've done awesome. And so one, thank you for doing that. But two, thank you for sharing this with everyone. I think this is really cool and will help a lot of people. So a couple of quick things as we transition here. Again, thank you, Jeff, for speaking with us. That was a great, brisk 20 minutes of content. I know there's a ton of notes that everybody probably took. If you would like to learn more, I'm going to click through a slide here real quick, but if you would like to learn more about Crowdsourcing and Medallia Solutions, you can just respond to this poll and we can capture your information and we can help get back to you with some more information and follow up. We are going to move into a Q&A session, so if you have questions, please feel free to type them in the Q&A window that's on your screen. We'll get to as many of those as we can. We'd love to answer some of your questions, and this is your chance. Jeff's here. He's a captive person that we can ask all the questions you want. So please feel free to ask questions as well. I'm going to start with one because there was one thing that we didn't mention that I actually think is really, really cool that I want to make sure people hear about and that you talk about. So what is kind of the coolest thing you've done? And this is a plant question, just to be transparent. What's one of the coolest things you did to make this real for the leadership in Frontline? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, I can. Thank you for bringing up the slide. This is something that I'm really excited about. We just recently launched these metal T-action cards to a small portion of our leadership team. And these are intended so as our headquarters teams eventually get back out to visit stores and kind of do field research and interact with our frontline employees, one, this is a way to create even more awareness around our feedback community, T-Action, because it's branded fully on this awesome metal card. But it also allows for our headquarters teams to kind of take a different approach to how they collect the feedback in the stores. So instead of, jotting down notes and, oh, I forgot that one thing that one person said, they can literally put it back in the hands of the person that wants to provide that feedback. And so they hold the card for the person to scan using their computer or their tablet that they use in our stores, and they go straight to the T-Action site. So if they haven't been there before, now they're there. And if they have, then they realize this is a place that all that feedback can be collected. And it's actually something that's top of mind for our headquarters teams as well. It's not getting lost in this black hole. So a couple things it solves for: we're not going to miss any of that feedback that's kind of accidentally forgotten. I can't remember what that person said. It also allows our feedback to be properly or appropriately prioritized. So rather than this one person said this is the most important thing and it suddenly becomes a fire drill, it goes into the system where other people can interact with it, and that creates kind of gets put into that crowdsourcing magic that I always talk about. Amazing. Plus, this metal card just looks so cool. You can put it on a keychain. You could put it on a lanyard. I just think it's pretty awesome, and it's just one of the many things that we're doing in the future to kind of bring this program to life for everyone.
No, I think it's cool. It's a really innovative way to think about it. And you're right, it does just look cool. So I am fully expecting you to send me one at some point. Love it. All right, so Q&A. Any folks out there have questions? We're happy to answer. I'm going to start kind of looking through the question list here that's coming in and try to answer a few of these. All right, so Jeff, one of the questions that came in is, why not just keep a sign in the back of the store for the frontline users to see and submit ideas?
Oh, that's a great question. I think we've actually done something similar to that in the past with our previous programs, and it does have some success to some extent. We're trying to A portion of the answer is we're trying to minimize our footprint, where we're like the less paper in stores, the better. But that doesn't always, it's not a lot of paper. So I think we could definitely do something like that. Actually, it's a really great idea. I wish you could go to T-Action, submit it in our site, and then I'll capture it and make sure that your idea is implemented. Great question.
That's good. That's good. Good stuff, and appreciate the questions. Please keep them coming. I'm trying to scroll through some of them to come up with some more. So Jeff, somebody asked about contests. You mentioned contests. Are you guys running contests through Crowdicity?
Oh my gosh, yes. So I didn't really mention it too much in detail with when I was talking about program successes, but contests have played a huge role in growing kind of site usage and registration since we've launched. One in particular that I thought was really cool was we did a 5G pitch contest. Obviously, our company is centered around 5G in the network. And so we had our Frontline submit their best pitch for how they talk about 5G with our customers, which I thought was really cool. And then as a smaller team at headquarters, we picked out our top 10, the ones that were the best, and we preloaded them into what we call a challenge inside Crowdicity. And so that challenge housed those 10 videos in the site, and we then launched that challenge to make it available to the Frontline audience, and we communicated via email and saying, hey, go here to see this awesome contest. And their goal was to essentially vote for the ones that they liked the best, and then the winner of that contest would win this fabulous prize. And just having that innovative approach to doing something a little bit differently, but also creating engagement around this program was fantastic. We saw hundreds of people over just the short week that we had that contest live join T-Action. So pretty awesome stuff. And I think, and again, we're continuously looking for different ways to bring more contests into the site. And kind of targeting different audiences even. So we did one for the holidays for our headquarters teams to kind of get them excited about sharing their holiday traditions, and we called it Holiday Whimsy. It was beautiful.
I love it. You're always so creative coming up with your stuff. Very cool. So speaking along that lines, we did have a question online. Someone asked, how did you come up with your topic and idea categories to get started?
Love that question. So I think that continues to change. And I think the needs of our business and kind of the priorities in our business really help identify what those topics should and could be. And so without going into all the details, because there's business sensitive material here, if it's a new program or a new idea or like a new initiative for our company, obviously that seems like the best time to create a challenge specific to that in a timely manner, have it housed in one of the first spots, because there's some challenge management that needs to happen during this program. And I think that's key to ensuring that strategically you have the best and most relevant things at the front of the challenge topic carousel, essentially. So number one priority here, number two here, number three here, and going down the line. So for us at T-Mobile, obviously, I mentioned systems. That's definitely one of the ones that we needed. Store operations is one, because we're consumer market. So I think anytime someone has feedback about how things are going in the store, that's a great place for people to share stuff. There's a lot of different ideas that we can talk about with that. 5G network experience is one as well, because that's a huge initiative for us. So.
Yeah, I think that's great, and I think it's cool that you guys thought about that stuff. I think one of the other things that I've noticed as I've been in there, and I've mentioned it to you before, Jeff, I think one of the other things that you did, which was really interesting, is you tackled things at a very high level as well as a very granular level. So you ask system-specific questions, which get really granular. But you also floated some topics around, obviously during the pandemic, you floated some things around how are we responding to your concerns around health and safety. You had topics out there around diversity and inclusion. Can you tell me a little bit about how some of those other things kind of came about and how useful you found those to be that are not necessarily so granular about systems and accessories on the wall or 5G network that maybe not everybody else has?
Absolutely. And I love that you referenced those two. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is one of those large initiatives for us at T-Mobile. So it was a priority in my mind that we needed to have it and have someone at headquarters from our human resources team really behind the scenes collecting that feedback. Another great reason to get human resources involved from the very beginning. And because this platform is open to all employees, it's a perfect place for everyone to share. And if they have an idea or, the likelihood that a pain point exists for something like diversity, equity, and inclusion is low. But there are some great ideas that come in about what we can do to get more involved with different parts or different, different groups. And then with pandemic related stuff, we had one called Stay Healthy Together. And it was really identifying, like, how are you really surviving this pandemic? What are you doing to like get by? Like, what are the things that are making your health and safety a priority in life? So it's a great place to share best practices with each other and vote on those ideas that that you like the most, that you think is really something that you could take forward. So it's kind of like one of those warm and fuzzy types of things where it's we're learning from each other, but also learning what ways we can help improve if we need to.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, and what you did was awesome, because again, it gave multiple people multiple outlets to potentially talk through or discuss different topics. Again, kind of high level and low level, which was really cool, and I know it helped drive your engagement. Had a couple questions coming in that are kind of similar, so I'm going to try to kind of group this one. So what are there other criteria or things you take into consideration to look at ideas outside of just what the frontline employees are saying? I think what they're going for is like, was corporate involved in some of this? Did you like create some of these yourself? What's that kind of balance there?
I see. I think there's a couple different answers for this. One thing I'll say is we started by implementing this kind of category system in consumer markets. So if any idea comes in, we can capture it and designate it as something that is either an idea, which is something that's not necessarily broken, but if it was implemented, it would make the experience even better. A pain point, which is something that's kind of broken and needs to be fixed. It's almost like a bug, like in systems talk. Or just feedback, like where someone just wanted to share how they feel about something. So we've kind of created this like designation system for when people share their feedback. So anything literally can be collected. And then from a moderator perspective, behind the scenes, those folks that are actually moderating the feedback that's received, we train them to make sure that they make sure that it's relevant. So like if it's most feedback is published, to be honest, because everyone's name is attached and they want to represent how they're sharing their feedback. So we see some great success here. But there are times where someone just may not have all the information. And so moderators are trained to help get more information as needed by responding through comments in each idea's card that comes in. I think that answers a portion of that. The other side of that is kind of when I mentioned that 5G contest, you don't have to open up a challenge and just say, here, bring all your ideas here. You can absolutely preload ideas into a challenge. Those kind of be the starting thoughts, or they could be like a contest where you vote for stuff. I always talk about American Idol because you have like 10 votes and you can spend them however you want. So I think that's exciting. And then the other part too is you can create. It doesn't have to be an idea specific challenge. Like it could be something just about feedback. When I first launched, we had a get started challenge that was about, what do you like about our new T-Mobile? With Sprint and T-Mobile combined as one company, what are you really excited about? And there were some great comments and great feedback coming in about just all the wonderful collaboration that's happening between our two companies. I hope that answered that question.
I think it did. We'll see if a follow-up comes through, but I think you definitely got there and got around it. That was great. Thank you. So a couple other things that are coming in. People are asking. You talked about moderators. So can you just talk a little bit about like how many moderators you have and how you kind of identified or recruited those folks?
Yes, love it. So we have, I would say, probably about 20 moderators, which is not a lot. These people are essentially our subject matter experts when it comes to each one of the challenges that we have on our site. And the more the merrier, to be honest. The way that Crowdicity is set up is it allows you to add as many moderators on a challenge that you want, even if they just want to receive the information and not actually respond. Like that's great for executive sponsors who want to like see all the feedback that comes in but don't necessarily have the time to respond to everything. But the moderators that we have are really responsible most of them are responsible for replying to the feedback that we have in the site and then sharing that feedback with their larger team. So it's kind of like almost like a filtration system for each part of our business.
No, that's
and
cool.
getting those folks too, like it was definitely something that kind of that two-pronged approach that I almost talked about earlier, like having that people that are really excited about getting that feedback is one way to start, but then also those key business initiatives, really convincing them that this is a platform that helps to kind of organize all the feedback that they receive. So while, it's easy to recruit people that are really invested in getting feedback, and it's a little bit harder to get people that are not as invested, but they see the benefits of the site almost immediately. And having those weekly conversations with moderators really helps build that relationship and helps them understand that we're all in this together, collecting feedback.
No, that's awesome. Thank you for answering that. I think that's probably on a few people's mind of like, how am I going to get people to help, and who are these people and where are they coming from? So I appreciate you shedding some light there. One other question that came in that I thought was really interesting, and please keep the questions coming. We've got a little bit more time. We can answer some more. Just curious, what is the sentiment from senior leadership now that you kind of promised this thing? And I know you were doing a whole lot of kind of a sales pitch of this could be cool, this is going to work. Now that you've been in for a couple of months, like what's the thought now from senior leadership, and what are they thinking about this, and what kind of engagement are they using and driving?
Love it. Our senior leaders are still really excited about this. When we first launched, we kind of went in with that promise, like, hey, this new platform is coming, and it's going to be awesome, and we're going to get so many cool pieces of feedback and whatnot. Now, I mentioned the over-communicating earlier. That's where this really comes into play. Like putting out what's the return on investment here. Like what are you actually putting back into the business? Like what are you getting out of this platform? And so our weekly updates include ideas that are trending, and that brings awareness to those teams at headquarters that are like, hey, man, this is still an idea that's in ideation phase. Like we need to make sure that this is implemented at some point. So it kind of helps drive that importance to those teams. And our senior leaders seem to really enjoy, wouldn't say enjoy, they are engaged well, and they are excited about where this can go in the future and continue to grow. And so the kind of team that I mentioned earlier, the one that focuses on feedback, that where this lives, we go on a weekly basis to our senior field leaders and share insights, like what are we hearing, and not just this platform, but in other kind of feedback platforms that we have. And I think that is helpful for them to understand what the voice of the frontline is. And so I think the overall sentiment from our senior leaders is positive, and it just is something that we continue to grow and work on. And I think our weekly newsletter is key to that, mostly because I created it and I love it. So I'm super excited about it.
No, and I would agree 100%. I mentioned it earlier. Your weekly newsletter is really cool. So yeah, one of the other questions actually dovetails right into that. So I'm glad you ended with that, because you transitioned yourself without even knowing. Can you talk a little bit about some of the kind of the cadence of the things that you guys are doing right now, just to kind of keep it going and keep it fresh?
Yes. And so Jason, yeah, this is something that I've learned. Like this is something I've learned as a program manager over the years of doing this. If you don't follow up and you don't share wins and successes, then the program will die. Like it has to be top of mind. It has to be something that your frontline and your leaders see is making an impact. And so we've done a couple different things that make it back to the frontline. One is, two things that are really exciting. One I'm going to talk about in a second, but one is we have this TV experience, the same TV experience. It's a video communication vehicle that we have through our team that pushes a video out to the back rooms of every store. And so after that first initial launch of videos went out, we continuously will bring like a win of the week, essentially. And so we'll showcase that person who shared the idea into action, their picture, where they're from in the country, because we're all over the country, and what was their idea or pain point and how was it resolved. It's just a nice little video graphic thing that plays, and it's once a week, so lots of people get into a spotlight. So that shows like great recognition. It shows that people are using the site and that their feedback is being heard and implemented. And that's one of my biggest, I think our biggest wins for the site, is having that kind of like weekly cadence that we send that out. Yes.
Yeah,
And then in addition to that, one thing that we haven't even talked about, and I wasn't even going to talk about it this time, but we are on the verge of introducing this really cool Slack integration through Crowdicity, which is the ability for one of your, if people are familiar with Slack, one of your Slack workspaces to have connected directly to your site. And so all they do in Slack is put /Crowdicity, type in their idea, and it takes it right to your Crowdicity site into its own specific challenge topic. So pretty awesome stuff. We haven't even launched that yet, but we're ready to get that going. So lots of amazing stuff coming our way soon.
Sounds very cool. And, we kind of talked about it earlier, that snowball effect. I know you're seeing it in your engagement numbers as well as your ideas. As you guys continue to communicate this out, your numbers just keep climbing and climbing and climbing. So it's very cool to see that momentum that you're generating and all the people that are getting assistance and getting great ideas brought forward. So very cool. There's a couple questions about like what's next. I think you've touched on them a few times. I know you kind of mentioned the cards. I know you talked a little bit about some contests that you have in mind. Can you talk a little bit more? Like, do you guys do anything from a leaderboard perspective where you actually do like rankings? Like, do you give people, do you give them status? Do you give them badges? What are you doing with the leaderboard? Is that today or is that more in the future?
So that the leaderboard is definitely more in the future, but I can touch on the badges real quick. I think that one thing that was phenomenal before we even launched, Crowdicity was able to step up and turn a portion of the badges into an automated badging system. So that means if someone submits 5 ideas, they can get a badge. Like, you can set the parameters. If they comment on 5 ideas, they get a badge, or like 10. You can make it whatever you want. And so it's been a fun experience for me to kind of, with all my like video game background, from a personal perspective, I go in and I've created a bunch of different badges that are just kind of fun, like Totes My Votes or, Votineer, like different names for the different badges. And those are automatically associated with people that have achieved a certain thing in the site. And so you have a kind of series of badges that accumulate over time, which also add to points, which go to your leaderboard. And so what we haven't done yet is actually incorporate some kind of prize system with the leaderboard. But that's something we definitely are looking at in the future. And that could be, I kind of mentioned earlier, like a trip to headquarters if you're in the top 20, to get a real-time focus group with your senior leaders or something. There's different ways that we can do this. We can even look at a specific challenge and say who are the leaders on the leaderboard within this challenge, and that way that team could potentially tap into those folks as a leader or as a focus group type experience. So definitely prizes are in my mind for the future, but it's just something that we're kind of like getting ready for. Nothing is official yet.
Yeah, and that'd be really cool. I know you guys have your own employee store too, so maybe you could hand out bow ties to folks at the top of the leaderboard, help them to kick up their fashion game a little bit to keep on par with you, Bill. I love it. I'm throwing my own idea.
Vote.
Awesome. Hey, so one last question. I think the folks out there are curious. We are getting a lot of comments about your bow tie. I'm not going to lie. So what do you really? People are asking, like, what's the biggest win? What's your biggest metric? Like, what are you most proud of? Like, could you just kind of wrap us up with? Because I think we're about to run out of time. But could you wrap us up? Kind of where you think your biggest win or biggest success, or what you're most proud of in this program?
Well, obviously the 80 pain points that we've solved, or ideas that have been implemented is a big metric that we continue to track. But personally, I'm managing this as like a social platform almost. So I kind of joke that I don't know if I can reference other social platforms, so I won't, but I kind of feel like I'm the original person in the platform, and I follow every single person that joins. Mm-hmm. You might get the reference. Mm-hmm. But I love that experience. I love being able to have that personal connection with everyone. And so what's big for me is tracking the user logins. Like, who are the people that are actually joining and who are staying in the site? And I think that my goal right now is because we have thousands of employees that can have access to this. And so my goal is to get to 10,000 users by Q2 of this year. And we're already even on this report or in this presentation, I said we're at 3,500. We're almost at 4,000 as of today. So we're on our way, and all of these methods and things that we're doing to promote the usage and kind of the site engagement will help us get there. And so that for me is a personal win, because thinking that we only had a couple hundred people on our previous site, this is just phenomenal. And we continue to leverage Crowdicity in different ways to have innovative, platforms for experience for any audience. And I think that's it's awesome. Someone will come to me and they'll say, Jeff, can Crowdicity do this? And I'm like, well, there's probably a way we can make it work. I've never found a thing that it doesn't do. And so you just have to have someone that can think on their feet and think what are some of the different ways we could potentially do this? It might not be exactly the way that they want it, but there's a way you can do it with all the different features that are included.
I love it. Your creativity definitely shines and has been a big benefit in this process. So we are running out of time here quickly. I do want to say thank you to all of you who joined, all of you who will listen to this on the recording later. But I want to say a special thank you to Jeff. Thanks so much for this session. This was awesome. You had so many fantastic ideas. Your energy and enthusiasm made this fun, engaging, exciting. Really appreciate all the thought you put into this. Really appreciate your willingness to share. I know not everybody is, so thank you. To those on the line, if you had questions that we didn't answer, we will follow up shortly. This Mastercast was recorded, so you will be receiving a link to the recording in 24 to 48 hours in English after we are finished today. And you will also receive a survey in the email that you use to register. Please respond with your feedback. We'd love to hear feedback. We are obviously a feedback company. We want to make these better. And you have the ability to use video to share your thoughts. A lot of good stuff has come through this already. And then I want to, again, just say thank you to Jeff. We appreciate you again. You've been such an awesome partner. And thank you for taking the time today to share all of this with us and our listeners. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Jason, and thanks everyone for the great questions, and let me know if I can help with anything.
Love it. Thanks, everybody.